Former New Jersey Superior Court Judge Andrew Napolitano joins me now. Sir, am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. You have, again, Carl, crystallized the anxiety that so many Americans perceive as they watch what Trump is going through. You know, the 14th Amendment has a peculiar history. It basically says anybody who once took an oath of loyalty to the United States to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution, as President Trump did when he became president 4 or 5 years ago, and then engaged in an insurrection against the United States, shall not be eligible to run for a federal office. Mm-hmm. For the 50 years after it was ratified, the government did not require convictions. If somebody said, well, we know he supported the Confederacy, we saw him in a Confederate uniform, he's off the ballot. That was the old procedure. In the 20th century, as the Supreme Courts became a lot more sensitive to what's called due process, no punishment without conviction, it is clear as can be, Donald Trump's name cannot be removed from any ballot if he has not been convicted of an insurrection. And as we know, he hasn't even been charged with an insurrection. So I don't know what this judge in Colorado is going to come down with. She said she would rule by the end of the week. You're right. Her decision could come down while you and I are on air. She's probably going to take the safe way out and say, look, he's not running for president. He's running for the Republican nomination for president. Mm-hmm. And the 14th Amendment says nothing about that. That's what happened with the Supreme Court of Minnesota and the Supreme Court of Michigan. So expect these cases to come back there once he wins the Republican nomination for president. But it is inconceivable to me that our judicial system, as dysfunctional as it has been, and you pointed all these excesses and absurdities out, would allow him the loss of the right to run without a conviction first. And that's impossible because he hasn't been charged.
Yeah, exactly. And they're not even trying to make that case. They're just saying, well, I feel that way. So he's actually, now that the gag order is lifted, he sounded off on Truth about hearing about the lack of charges in Biden's classified document case. Look, they kicked in the door at Mar-a-Lago and then have made this massive case that he's somehow guilty of treason and fraud and all these different violations, even though he was the president who could declassify. And then Joe Biden, who had no authority to declassify at the time, had all the same stuff or similar classification stuff. No charges.
Can I tell you that my sixth sense, just my sixth sense and all my years of experience, tells me Joe Biden should be worried. I know the prosecutor, Bob Hur. He is as tenacious and aggressive as Jack Smith is. The fact that he interviewed President Biden for 5 hours in the White House and then crickets. The fact that he's taking this long to look at a very small amount of documents, there's only about a dozen or so, and then crickets, tells me something is up. Just my gut feeling, based on my experience and my observations. I have no inside knowledge of this, but I think Joe should not be sleeping well at night. I also think that Joe's going to cut a deal. Don't prosecute me, and I'll go back to Rehoboth Beach.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think Joe sleeps plenty these days.